All right, guys. I'm making a quick video here on how we move inventory goods to a and cost it to a project in QuickBooks. I've been working in the manufacturing space and worked with a number of different ERP systems for probably 10 to 15 years now. QuickBooks is a great starter accounting system, but to me, it's always been relatively deficient when you actually are dealing with physical inventory. And so specifically when you're trying to assign cost to a project. What we're kind of going to show here is two steps that we kind of do to move, one, your material out of inventory, and then a second step that moves it and assigns it to your specific project. So before we start, I'm going to assume that you know how to create a new chart of accounts. So that's going to be critical that you set up a chart of account that is a holding location for the dollar value that you move out of inventory before you assign it to your project. And then secondly, you know how to create items in QuickBooks inventory. You know how to go create the part number, save it so that you actually have quantity. And then subsequently to that is that you know how to receive items in and create physical inventory in QuickBooks, which is done through creating a PO, converting it to a bill, and once you convert it to a bill, that's how your quantities actually populate into the QuickBooks inventory system. So again, assuming those things, you guys are knowing how to do that, and that there's tons of videos out there on doing that stuff already. So I'm going to kind of start through the process here of how we actually assign it to a project, because the project feature in QuickBooks I think is actually pretty great. It's just this is one of those aspects that's deficient. So this is under the inventory quantity adjustment sheet. I run a solar company, and this is kind of what we use it for the items that we keep in stock and how we assign it to the different customers that we have. And so under the inventory quantity adjustment tab that you can find on the top left of the main QuickBooks Online window, essentially you start by doing an inventory movement transaction. And so first thing you want to select is the adjustment reason. This kind of goes in line with QuickBooks kind of not thinking through inventory transactions and moves all the way, because you see all their pre-selections drop downs here, shrinkage, inventory reevaluation. It's more about doing your inventory, your weekly, monthly inventory accounts. And it's not until if you go to other does it default to cost of goods sold, where you're actually assigning it to a project or a product that you're making. And so this is the default location for the other adjustment reason. And so here, this is where you want to go and select the holding chart of account that you've created. So we've called ours Purgatory, so inventory project material Purgatory. And essentially all this is a chart of, an inventory chart of account that we've created that essentially we move material out of inventory, move the quantity out, but move the dollar value into this account. And all this is to do is that we can isolate the dollar value that we're moving from inventory into this account so that we can ultimately assign that same dollar value to a project. And so in this case, if we had a project for a customer or you're building a product, the inventory transaction, you could do it one at a time, you could do it in a batch, but you want to keep it restricted to that project. You do not want to do this if you have two projects or three projects that you're trying to do inventory move at a time. You don't want to do those all in one inventory transactions. You really want to isolate that dollar value move so you can track it accordingly. So I'm going to call this one reference number test one, just for the fun of it. And again, I'm moving it to a Purgatory was what we call it, but any kind of temporary holding location chart of account that you're going to create. And again, this is only to get that dollar value out. You can name it whatever you want, but the main thing is that this is a holding location, and it's not something you're going to leave the dollar value in for more than a day, essentially. So in this case, I'm going to use a panel that we have, again, I'm just going to move one of them. So the new quantity is going to be 27, and you'll see the change in quantity is -1. So I'm going to save and close that transaction. Okay. And then you'll see what we can do is we can go to the actual chart of count, and I'll go to the Purgatory location. And you'll see here that it was 0, and we've moved $180, $180.40 to this location. And the sum total now sitting in this account, $180.40. And so that's an important number to keep on hand, and what you're ultimately going to be moving to your location. And so ultimately, when you're done, you want this to be 0. You don't want to have money sitting in here. You want this to be zeroed out, and the temporary location is honestly just for temporary. So to get it out of here and assign it to your project, what you're going to do is do a journal entry. And again, date, journal number, however you guys handle it for your own systems. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to find that purgatory account, and we're going to credit that account. So the dollar value that was in that we had moved is 180.40 cents. Okay, and then don't modify any of these other items. And then we're going to move it to our cost of goods sold. So when we first did the inventory transaction, actually we're going to move it to supplies and materials, cost of goods sold. That's just kind of how we do it. When you first did that transaction, it defaulted to a cost of goods sold account. Again, we're moving to the supplies and materials category within COGS. And then we're going to debit that account $180.40 to move to the purgatory location. And then this is here where you assign it to that project. So I've created a test project right here. So we're going to dump it into this test project. And again, this is what actually transacts it. It moves it to the supplies and materials account, but tracks it within the project. So it's really key that this is where you assign it to the project. Again, on the credit line item, do not assign it to anything. Just leave that blank. And then all you do is you hit save. Journal entry has been saved. And then what we can do is we can actually go back to our projects. And then I have my test project here. Go within the test project. And then you can see this $180.40 that shows up here. So you go to the transaction list, and it'll show up as a journal entry that you can go back into in the future if you need to edit it. There's multiple ways to get to this, but this is how it gets assigned, that dollar amount. Then move to the right, cost of goods sold account. It's been assigned to the project. And this is only for inventory. Again, expenses, you can assign directly to projects that come through your credit card or something like that. But again, this is only for inventory movements. In my opinion, if anybody out there from QuickBooks is listening, I've seen it before. I think it was the desktop version, maybe a previous version, online version. But it would be really fantastic if, when you're doing this other inventory move, cost of goods sold, supply materials, cost of goods sold, whatever you want to select, that there was another drop down here that lets you select the project. I've seen this before, I think with the desktop version, but simply adding that drop down here to where we just assigned it to that project when you did the inventory move would be a fantastic improvement for this product. But again, the workaround that I just showed you, it's a 2-step process. Again, it's about putting that dollar amount in a holding location and then ultimately doing a journal transaction to move it out of that holding location into your final cost of goods account, but assigning it to the project at that point in time. I hope this was helpful. I hope it was clear. I'm not a pro at making YouTube videos or explanation videos, so I hope you guys find it helpful. And have a good day. Thank you.